Chapter 8. Where am I? I whispered into the darkness. I didn't expect an answer, but I knew I wasn't alone. Can you open the curtains? I asked. I needed to see if sunshine had broken through the fog and rain. I was desperate for something to brighten my mood and confirm what I did know and what I didn't know. The curtains opened slowly, and to my surprise it was night. Pitch dark and still raining. Have I been here all night? What time is it? I said, sitting up, then realizing I was naked. I pulled the covers up to my neck. All night and all day. The voice was soft and deep. Ashton stood against the backdrop of the Seattle skyline. I had never seen it this beautiful before, with the lights illuminated across the city. Maybe because I had never noticed or had been in a building this tall. Perhaps I was too focused on one thing, myself. I wanted to be a research scientist. I wanted to discover the cure for cancer. Anything to help mankind. Looking at the tall, handsome figure standing in the dim light, I knew that profile. Strong and confident, sure of himself and his place in the world, or so I thought. You passed out in my car, and I didn't want to wake you to get your address, and since I live alone and it's only my house servant and me, I decided to bring you here. It wasn't far from the hospital, of course. Of course, I said. But who carried me and... I glanced down at my naked body. Who undressed me? My voice breaking, showing my apparent vulnerability. I'm lying naked in a man's bed, and that man behaved as if he detested me. I feel rested and nothing pains me, so I think I'm safe. I did, of course. He stepped nearer to the bed and closer to me. I flinched. He saw it and stopped his approach. As you know, I'm a doctor. His voice was warm and low with reserved passion. But you're not my doctor, I said in defiance of what he had done. You had no right to undress me while I was out. I don't want you looking at me when I'm unconscious. I've seen many unconscious bodies. You weren't in a deep sleep. You were just tired. And I thought you needed rest and you couldn't sleep well, he paused, with those tight clothes binding your body. His voice, even his tone, smooth and convincing. I must have been really out for you to undress me, and for me not know. Did you give me anything? I saw Ashton raise his eyebrow as if I had insulted him. I don't think I was molested, I said, touching myself. He slanted his head and laughed, which made me angry. Do you think I need to molest you, or any woman? On any given day, I could have had my choice of any woman I desire. I come into contact with all kinds of women every day, from all walks of life. I've had queens and princesses through the ages of time invite me to their bedrooms. I've had married women want to give up their husbands and children for one night with me. He stopped and stared at me, as if he had given away a secret. My eyes narrowed, my mouth set ajar in disbelief. What is he talking about? What's wrong with him? Maybe he's the one who should have been in a mental ward? Queens and princesses? Through what age and time is he speaking about? He stepped away from the light. When I blinked, he stood across from me and closer to the bed. Then he turned on the light next to the couch with a remote in his hand, controlling the opening and closing of the curtains and turning on and off lights. I prefer the dark myself, he said, sitting down across from me. You're an arrogant bastard. He laughed at me again. I've been called many things but never a bastard. I know my father, he said, his voice biting. Do you know yours? And he headed for the door, opened it, turned around to gaze at me one more time, and left me thinking and brooding over his words. Did I really know who my father had been? Before I moved into an apartment with Paige, my mother had said that my real father had been someone else. He had been a vampire hunter. I put that out of my mind, until Ashton ignited a fire in my memory. Who wants to hear that your father may have been crazy or worse? He was actually a vampire hunter, and he spent his life away from me killing vampires. If vampires existed, which now I think not, but for others like Elliot, his mind told him there were vampires and he believes it. As I was trying to wrap my mind around what Ashton said, he strutted back into the room with a breakfast tray. "My maid cooked this for you. You look emaciated." He sat the tray down on a table in the large bedroom. "I'm not hungry," I said with a stern voice. In truth, I didn't know when I wasn't hungry. "I'm going to step out of the room, and here's a robe." He reached into the closet and dropped a sheer white robe on the foot of the poster bed. Examining it, I put my hand under it. "What do you expect me to do with that? I could walk around naked, and no one would notice the difference. This doesn't cover anything." "They would notice," he smiled at me a second time with that heart-stopping grin. "You have some fresh clothes hanging in the closet. When I return, I want you eating. If you choose to sit there naked, it won't bother me." I mumbled a few words, "If you want this, you eat it," and he turned around and looked at me with his thick dark raised eyebrow as if he heard every word I said. Climbing out of bed and placing the sheet around me instead of that see-through whatever, I sat down at a small table looking out at the Seattle skyline, wrapped securely in the layered white sheet covering my breasts and the rest of me. Ashton came back within seconds like a doctor would in a dressing room, and sat in a chair across from me. "You are the most maddening young woman I've ever met. And I bet you've met many." He glanced over at me and his eyes went sad, and he lost his beautiful smile. Wiped off. Just like that, I had the power to wipe a smile off his handsome face, and I could put one on. Well, I'm getting somewhere. Maybe there was something to what Paige had said. But I'm sure dealing with Ashton wouldn't be easy. He stared at me, which sent shivers through my skin, whenever he glared at me as if he could eat me. "Yes. I've met my share of women. I've met more than you will ever know." His voice deep and erotic as he stared past me. He paused and a long silence filled the room. "But I never met a woman who wasn't afraid of." He didn't continue. "Eat and dress, I'll have my driver take you home." His voice went cold and lifeless once more. Just like that, he froze on me. His eyes were cold and calculating. There was a chill in his voice, and he stood hard and unfeeling over me, as if I wasn't there or he could make me disappear if he wanted. And then he stood, and when I turned, he had vanished into the next room without saying a word. I dressed, and his driver drove me home in silence. I didn't ask for Ashton, but I wanted to. I wanted to see Ashton's face and hear his voice before I left him. When I was with him, it was as if he provided protection for me. Not the kind of protection a father would provide, but the kind of protection a woman wants from a man she loves, and the kind he gives for the woman he loves. On Sunday, I had to get some rest and read to keep up in the lab. Days and hours had passed, and it was only a few more hours before I had to return to work. Before I could see Ashton again. Before I could fill my nights with my dreams of him. Now I lived to see a man who I couldn't decode, and who I pissed off every minute I existed. How could I figure him out and keep up with him when my experiences with men had been limited? No brothers or siblings to have anything to compare to. And no boyfriends. Only one girlfriend to speak of, and where was she? Usually, Paige would text me if I didn't come home at night. Ashton's driver stopped his car, and he opened the door in front of the building. He nodded at me and held out his hand. I took it and stepped out of the car in front of my building as he watched me walk into the building. Then I heard the car start and the motor race into the traffic. Returning to my apartment after leaving Ashton's beautiful apartment wasn't my idea of fun. I lay in my bed and wished I hadn't pushed him away. I wished I had been less confrontational, but then that wouldn't have been me. I had to change if I was ever going to get my doctor. I shook my head. Forget him, he's too difficult to deal with, too mature for me. I had forgotten my focus. Getting a scholarship to Stanford. I vowed to get my focus back. I would write out my plan. Maybe I should take baby steps. A 3-month plan. How to do this job and get the best recommendation letter from Dr. Mieris. No more thinking of him as Ashton. When I think of him that way, it messes with my head, and I'm intellectualizing about a man. A man I want to love me and make love to me. That's an excellent way to ruin everything. Go to bed with him and let him fuck me and take my virginity. That's a plan? I thought. Like that it would be easier on the both of us. The way it is now, I'm screwing the experiments, and who knows what Ashton has done. I hit my head with my hand. What the fuck is wrong with you? I knew what was wrong. My hormones. Now all I think about is sex. I have sex on the brain since I've been close to that handsome masculine man. The thought of him makes me ache for his body on mine. For intimacy. I closed my eyes, wanting him. I thought I could hear his heartbeat, but it was my heart beating for him. Calm down. And get up and see if Paige is around, I murmured. Maybe she can help with my dilemma. I hadn't seen Paige all weekend. When I stepped to the floor, I heard the vibration of my phone on the table next to my bed. I turned the light up and peered at my phone. It's a text from Paige. I was hoping it was from him. On a Sunday night, I get a text saying, "Dakota, come to this address and get me. Hurry. Something bad has happened. I feel sick." Oh fuck. Do I need this? Rushing to dress, I know something's wrong. Since when has Paige turned to me for anything? She acted as if she had it all together, and didn't need anyone, and especially me, since I knew nothing about the world and nothing about men. I've done some strange things in my few years on this earth, but the most bizarre is meeting my girlfriend at some private club late at night. And I knew it wouldn't be a club I would ever visit. I'm listening to my heels go click-clack on this cobblestone street. I glance around, and all I can see are doors and nothing that looks remotely like a club. Why the fuck am I dumb enough to go to this place alone? I whispered, checking around to see if I'm being followed. No one in their right mind, or maybe a fool, would come to a place like this at midnight Sunday, when she has to be to work early Monday morning. But Paige has never been the brightest crayon in the box, and now I'm proving that neither am I. And what the fuck could she want so bad that she had to go to this part of town? I said, looking to my left and then my right. If people were walking around, it wouldn't be so bad, but the place was deserted. Nothing but old deserted warehouses. Then it came to me. A man. Only Paige would travel all the way out here to see a man. And where did she leave her car? And I'm stupid for looking for her. But what could I do? When your best friend says come and pick me up, I don't feel well, you drop everything and go see about her. I should have listened to the Uber driver, and not my heart. Chapter 9. Dakota, you don't want to get out here, especially here. Look around, it's deserted. Do you see anyone? I glanced around, and there were no lights, and the fog lay over the cab like a tent. You should go back home before you make a serious mistake. One you may not be able to take back. You could lose your life. My Uber driver friend warned me, but my stubbornness and my lack of fear which visits the youth dismissed it. Before I stepped out of the cab, I tried paying him, but he shook his head, handing the money back, and said, "I don't want to be responsible. This is blood money." He shoved it into my hand, and I dropped it into my purse. If I'm not killed or raped, I could use the extra dollars, I thought. He continued driving to get me closer to the buildings, before he dropped me off at this corner filled with warehouses and shipping containers. Then I heard his engine start up, and he zoomed around the buildings out of sight. I had been warned, so what did I expect him to do? Risk his life for Paige? He didn't know her. If he had known Paige, he probably would have risked his life too. She was kind and giving but unpredictable. When it came to men, she was predictable, always looking for love, but acting as if she wasn't. But did I listen to the Uber driver? Of course not. I'm almost 20, well, not quite, and I can handle myself, and I like to take chances. And I love that misguided girl looking for love in all the wrong places, I thought to myself. I'm trying not to be that scared 19-year-old who's afraid to flirt around with that handsome doctor. If I can brave this, I can do what's necessary to get what I want. I won't let Ashton Mieres run me off that job and ruin my chances of working for the summer and getting that on my resume. I need his recommendation to get into Stanford, and if I have to fuck him to get what I want, then I will, even if I have to initiate it. I might enjoy him better than he would enjoy fucking a virgin. Now I was thinking like Paige and a fool. Let's hope he wants me as much as I want him, I mumbled to myself as I searched around, pulling at handles, looking for the right door. Then I heard the foghorn of ships and smelled the sea air. I'm not far from the port, I thought. It's possible I could be at the port. With the fog so thick, I could be anywhere. I moved from one door to the next, feeling my way around with my hands. If only there were some moonlight. Then I remembered my pin light on my keychain. Reaching inside my purse, I touched my house keys and turned on the light. I could see a door handle, if nothing else. I can't say it made me feel safe. Nothing would but being in my own bed. My hands crawled along the metal walls. How crazy am I for doing this in all this damn rain and fog? I exhaled, moving forward when I wanted to turn back. I pull my hoodie over my head because I'm soaked and I don't have a sense of direction, and I'm alone in an unfamiliar dark place. It's like being in a fun house at a park on Halloween night alone. I'm stumbling around in heels when I should have worn sneakers. I'm wondering where the fuck am I gazing around. I can't see anything that looks like a club. Just one container after the next. I step in the directions of the instructions I received from Paige's text. As I look up and back to the text with only a pen light trying to make out a red metal building. Then I hear this low, strong, sexy voice, "Are you lost?" I shiver, and I don't want to turn around. It sounds like Ashton, but what is he doing on a dock and far from the hospital? My fear has taken a hold on me, and my thinking is confused and off the charts. I glance around slowly, expecting to see him because his voice sounds as if he is behind me, but I don't see anyone. How the fuck am I to see anything when it's so damn dark in this place? And where the fuck is Paige? I'm going to kill her when I see her, I murmur. My heart is beating twice as fast, and if I were older, I would die of a heart attack. If I had known that I was going to be walking on cobblestone and dodging metal objects, I would have worn boots. I had nothing to protect myself. And then I remembered my mother giving me a leather-bound case, and I laughed and threw it into a box with the rest of the things I planned on donating to the Salvation Army. But where does it say that what's in that leather case would have protected me from being killed out here? How is that kit to protect me here? There are no vampires for me to kill around here, I rationalized. I could have used it for protection. If I remembered correctly, she said that there was a stake, hammer, holy water, and something for lighting a fire and cutting someone's head off. The sharp objects like a stake and a heavy object like a hammer could be put to good use, but holy water? Well, about now I'm thirsty and my mouth is dry from fear. I could use a drink of it, and if I stay any longer, I may need something to light a fire. Entertaining my mind was all I could do at this point. I had given up and ready to call a cab. Maybe I should call my mother first, I thought. Perhaps she should know where to find my body. I thought that this would send her over the edge. Knowing her only child could die at any time. So I decided against calling her. But something wasn't right with my mother. If I make it out of this, I have to check on my mother, I thought. That was on my mind, and Paige, who has me in this hellish place with voices talking to me and me talking to myself, will reap my wrath once I see her. I suck in a large breath, in and out, and continue stomping along as I peer at the containers looking for a red one, until I come to the right door. It's sitting away from the rest. The only one that dark blood red color. I bang on the opening, and no one comes to the door to open it. I hit again and again. I hear nothing. Eventually, someone gets around to opening the door, but I'm soaked from the rain and smelling like a small dog running away, and I probably look like one too. A large, stocky man, a barrel chest, with a body that looked like he had been molded in clay and put into a fire, looked down at me. His skin dry and his hair like straw. He peered at me with cold blue eyes from two small slits that appeared to be where his eyes set. I knew I should have run away the minute he opened the door, but where was I going? And then there was the case of finding Paige. "I'm looking for Paige," I said, trying to hide the tremor in my voice, but not doing well. Not well at all. The hard-looking man didn't answer. He just turned and showed me a long corridor and extended his hand in that direction. The place was a vast, dimly lit room, and for the first time I heard the sound of music, laughter, and voices and the smell of cigarette smoke, and I figured I was in the right place. I hobbled down the dark hall in the direction of sounds in my high heels and tight jeans. I probably picked up a little weight when I wasn't noticing. And these were the only clean pair of pants I owned. I don't know what I did with the clothes Ashton gave me. I didn't feel right taking them, so I dressed in my old things. Inching my way down the corridor frightened me because the place looked creepy with the high ceilings and the dim lights. The way this place appeared, I knew I wasn't dressed for running. If I had known I would have to go to a place like this, I would have put on my jogging shoes and stretch pants. Too late now. Placing my hands on the doorknob, it opened without my help, and standing over me was another pale person with dead skin and dead hair, but this one was thin as if he never got a chance to eat his fill of food. The only thing I could see is he ate just enough to live if you consider his state of being alive. "I'm looking for Paige." He pointed to his left, and quickly I caught her eye. I'm not sure how she saw me and how I spotted her in this dim-lit room, but our eyes locked on each other and I headed in her direction. When I neared the table where she sat surrounded by young men and women smoking and kissing, and some dancing to low music, I could see her sitting comfortably on someone's lap. And he had his arms around her waist and his nose under her long hair, kissing her neck. Her long dark hair covered his face. "Do you know what it took to find you? Not to mention, having to get out of bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. What do you have to say?" I stood before her with my hands on my hip, looking like a prison guard. "Thank you," she said in that small voice which always had me feeling sorry for her. I reached for her arm. "Now let's go. The only cab we can get around here is Uber, and God knows what kind of driver we'll get at this time of the night. We'll probably have to fight for our lives just to get home." "We can't go now," she said, gazing up at me with eyes where the makeup had run and it looked like black ink had stained her face. There were large dark purple circles, and Paige's eyes were sunken in. She had never looked unhealthy as she does now. She usually looks vibrant and attractive, but she looked like something had drained the blood from her without giving her something to replenish it. "What do you mean we can't go? You look terrible, Paige. What have you been doing?" "Nothing. I've been here with my date," Paige said, slurring her words as if she had been smoking something. The place was filled with smoke, and I couldn't tell what it was, and I didn't want to. "We've been invited to a party," she said, looking at me with closed eyes. "A party?" I yelled at her, and the people sitting on the sofa behind me stopped what they were doing and glared at me. I planned on going to sleep, get up early, and read some of those manuals that Dr. Mieres assigned me. If I can't keep up, then I know it's all over for me. As I'm pouring my heart out to Paige, she's acting as if I don't exist. The only thing she's concentrating on is the man who's nuzzling her neck. I hear the slurping and kissing sounds originating from his constant licking. "Are you on drugs?" I shout. The others in the room paired off in corners turn and hissed at me. I lean back. I can't see them well, but I know a hiss when I hear one. Annoyed as hell, because I got out of my bed at an ungodly night, and when I thought it was an emergency, it isn't. "I'm leaving and you two should get a bed." I narrowed my eyes at them, but they didn't notice. When I turn and take a few steps, Paige rises from the guy's lap, and I hear a hissing sound, and his eyes glare at me as if I'm doing something that's causing him distress. When Paige catches up with me, I'm halfway through the door into the hall. "Come on, Dakota, you're going to enjoy the party, and there's this handsome guy. I've been telling him about you. Don't you get it? I came to get you, and I'm not here to go to any parties. And why haven't you mentioned him to me before? I never once heard you say that you wanted me to meet anyone." I pull at her small arm and she pulls back. She looks frail, but she has strength in her arms more than I have. "He's a doctor, and after that thing with you and Dr. Ashton Mieres, I didn't want to say anything. Remember you said you never wanted to see a doctor again?" I walk away from her, and she trots behind me. "He said that he could hire you so you could get your recommendation for school." I stop. "If you had come home sometimes, maybe to clean up and dress, then I would have told you that things are okay with us." I take Paige's hand. "You need a bath. What have you been doing?" I'm not sure how I stand with Ashton, but I had to say something to get Paige out of here. I look to her, and I can tell her mind is somewhere else. I know she's not going to listen to me. But I tried. "You have to go with me, Dakota. I promised the doctor. He's over the hospital, and my job's on the line. Then my guy will take us home. Please." I glance over at him, and yet I can't see anything but tattoos on his hands and piercing. How could he be a doctor? I'm thinking. Paige likes that kind of man, but I don't. If this man you want me to meet is full of tattoos, then that's it for me, and I'm out of there. This one is nice, and he'll make you forget about Dr. Mieres. Okay. So you convinced me. Wait at the door, Dakota. I'll be there shortly. Why don't you get into the limo out front and wait for me? I'll be there shortly. I should have known better. I didn't see a limo when I searched around looking for this place. I didn't see any cars. I didn't want to leave Paige alone with this group, and I thought if I went along with her and got her out of here, just maybe I could get her to go home with me.